This is about a town called Elmore, and the loving family that's the talk of the town. Excuse the grammar mistakes. The anonymous author who wrote this article tried to make it somewhat understandable. We might not exist in the world yet, but this place did. Even before this was a town on Earth, this place did indeed exist, yet it wasn't talked about. It existed, but was lost for those who would die before their actual lives began. Though some locations of this town are still residing on Earth, and are now being lived by others. Here's what we know. In 1998, there was a place called Elmore. Elmore is a place that exists. The people are nice, but there's sometimes trouble. A lot of the people in Elmore are regular human beings, though there's one family in particular that's more special than the rest of the town. This is the Watterson family. There are 5 residents who reside in the family. Out of the other residents in the family, Anais, the younger sister, Nicole, the mother, Richard, the dad, and Darwin, the adopted brother, are normal people. But there's one child in particular, named Gumball. He has that name because his family gave it to him, though he prefers to be named Zach at times. He's a troublemaker, but he's a good boy, though being diagnosed with ADHD, a common brain disorder, he's a student at the school of Elmore, commonly known as Elmore Junior High. Usually, he tries to fit in with the other children, but he's usually left out due to his disorder. He's usually described by other students as annoying. The reason he's annoying is due to his mouthy, rude, and sarcastic behavior, but there are some people who are friends with him at the school. He even has a girlfriend named Penny, and she adores him so much. Now, because of his attitude and complaints about him, his parents got a call about his behavior, and they sent him to a school counselor. This counselor is known as Steve Small, or Mr. Small. And after Gumball saw the counselor after a few days, he acted a bit more normal. He even started being likable around the school. Though, after a few days, he suddenly starts getting depressed for unknown reasons. It's at this point that he is now realizing that the other kids hated him before. Naturally, this is when his family starts noticing their child's depression. As it turns out, he's diagnosed with it. The doctor prescribes Gumball a medication made to help him. He was supposed to take it for a couple days. He did what he was told, and suffice to say, it worked. He was indeed happier and normal. Oddly normal. Lucky for Gumball, it was the weekend, so he could rest. But when it came to Sunday, Gumball told his parents that he wanted a computer. Richard and Nicole hesitated, but realized that Gumball was pretty bored, so he got his computer. But his parents told him to be good to get the computer. He did exactly what his parents asked him, and suffice to say, he gets what he wants. He immediately started using it, but there's a thing he wanted to try out the most, which is animating. See, his idea was to draw a cartoon character that looked like a blue cat and had the same clothing as him. But judging by the fact that the Wattersons barely had a budget, he had no choice but to download any free software that would allow him to animate. He called this cartoon character Gumball. Same name as him. What he animated was of Gumball walking on a loop in a white background. He wasn't going to publish this anywhere, but he wanted to only show it to himself. He thought about the potential for a future show of his, but he didn't quite want to make it yet. That's how proud he was. It was now Thursday. Gumball went to school, but before so, he took some pills to stay calm. Before he walked to school, he noticed a man standing near the school, somewhere where he couldn't be seen, selling what looked like drugs. Judging by the fact that he was just a child and didn't know better, he asked the man for some, and he got some. Gumball gave the man some money, which he earned from his allowance, and took them. Turns out that there was a test, and Gumball asked to use the bathroom. The teacher, Lucy Simeon, allowed him, but before allowing him, Lucy scolded him for a minute for asking during class. This was Gumball's opportunity to take what he had paid for, and he did exactly that. He went back to the classroom, and so far he was normal. Some students in the hallway reported that his behavior was getting odd, though. But before Gumball got close to his classroom, he started vibrating. He began to vomit a little bit of fluid and fell to the ground. When the teachers walked by and noticed this scene, Gumball had to leave early and get some medical attention. Thankfully, he began to recover afterward. Gumball's eyes were slightly red. He found himself not being able to walk properly, and having fainting spells in and out. He walked into his room and opened the window. Apparently, in his head, Gumball thought life was a cartoon, and he couldn't die. So he wanted to test that theory by jumping out. Nicole tried to catch him, but she wasn't fast enough, and Gumball plummeted to the ground. Richard and Nicole, along with Darwin and Anais, were shocked and began to cry until they noticed drugs coming out of Gumball's pocket. Their grumpy neighbor, Mr. Robinson, was wondering what on earth was going on until he noticed Gumball's motionless body on the ground. He called the ambulance, and they drove to the house. A bunch of vehicles were in front of Gumball's body, with him foaming from the mouth. He was picked up, and he was being taken into one of the vehicles to be transported to the Elmore hospital. Well, they got there. One of the doctors put a bandage over Gumball's head, and they laid him on the bed. His parents came on time, and he began to recover, though his pupils were gone and his mouth was completely open, drooling out blood. Gumball was indeed alive, but he wasn't acting right. It was almost like he was possessed. He took a stance as if he were about to attack suddenly, but Darwin shoved him back on the bed, and a doctor injected him with something to knock him out. A nurse came into the room and went over to the young and ill Watterson, and the nurse comforted him to make sure he was okay. Then something odd happened. Gumball started groaning as a response. Suddenly, people over at Cartoon Network and numerous scientists came into the room. And apparently, they found out about Gumball's intelligence in animation, but they really wanted to figure out what was truly in his mind. A scientist told the doctor to open up Gumball's head so that his brain was completely visible, and the doctor did so. A scientist was then connecting wires and cables to Gumball's body, and one of the Cartoon Network employees started connecting the cables to a TV near the bed. They thought about the potential in Gumball's mind of being the next big show. As they were connecting the wires and cables to the television, it was of Gumball, the cat. A version of him behind bars. The scientists thought that this was interesting. They jotted some notes on a clipboard, and one of them showed it to the Cartoon Network employee. The television eventually changed from static to jumbles and colors until it started to form the following words. The Amazing World of Gumball. Following that was a title card which read, The Mind. It was played almost like an episode. Gumball's family was also looking at the screen, finding it interesting and odd. A couple of scientists were writing on the clipboard and fascinated by this intelligence. It started with Gumball, but there were newer characters that looked like Gumball's family. A pink, father-like rabbit. He acted like a slob in the show. Apparently, the female blue cat was like Gumball's already existing cartoon design, and this was indeed Nicole. Gumball's siblings were also included. A smaller pink bunny, intelligent as the brother, and another being an orange goldfish. We had Anise and Darwin. They were just sitting on the couch in their home, exactly as it was in the real world. During this odd and shocking moment, Gumball's girlfriend Penny walked into the hospital room, and she noticed Gumball's lifeless body lying in the hospital bed. She too looked directly at the television. Gumball was indeed in a coma, though. Something caught Penny's attention. She noticed the wires and cables coming out of Gumball's body, and asked what was going on, and she was informed that they found out about the intelligence of this little boy. They were displaying his thoughts on television. On the screen, it showed Gumball's school. Still the same. But it showed cartoon versions of everyone in it. Joe being a banana and calling himself Banana Joe. Carrie, originally an emo girl, now a ghost. Everyone else was just inanimate objects and animals, but what caught Penny's attention was who she looked like. Penny was a yellow fairy, but in a shell. Yet Gumball still realized how beautiful she was, so his mind captured her like this. Gumball did exactly what he did in real life at school. He didn't pass out or anything, all he did was start trouble and get chased in the halls, occasionally dragging his adopted brother into the chase. There was nothing else to write down. Cartoon Network employees picked up what the scientists wrote down and sent them to a man named Ben Boccolet. As he was receiving what he got, the family, doctors, and Penny noticed Gumball's body vibrating and twitching until he stopped. He had passed away.